33,000 people donated money, and we ended up getting 1.2 million, which was the real start of our nonprofit. And it allowed us to tap into hundreds and hundreds of kids, and now give speech and debate all throughout New York City to every kid who needs it.
Take control of your career and compensation right now. It's your 5-minute career hack. Welcome back to the podcast. We have another amazing interview for you today. But before we get started, be sure to hit that subscribe or follow button so you don't miss any of the amazing interviews we have planned for you. Let's dive right in. You may recall the incredible story of Humans of New York posting featuring Jonathan Conyers and Deco that raised $1.2 million. That's right, $1.2 million to support a high school debate team. Stories about the success of the post were published in the Washington Post, NBC News, and others, and even landed Conyers and Deco a spot on the Kelly Clarkson Show. In his new book, I Wasn't Supposed to Be Here, Finding My Voice, Finding My People, and Finding My Way, that released September 5th, Conyers shares the full story of his journey escaping the precarious circumstances he was born into and the teachers and mentors who helped guide him along the way. So let's welcome Jonathan Conyers to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Jamila, thank you so much for allowing me on this platform. I'm excited to have a great conversation with you, and let's do this.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for being here today. I know our audience is going to be blessed by your journey, not just the 1.2 million that you raised for an incredible high school and their debate team, but also what led you to this place. So if you could share a little bit about your journey, your high school journey, and then that'll transition us into how you got to this point in your life.
Yeah. So in high school, I ended up going to Frederick Douglass Academy High School, which is in Harlem, New York City. Unfortunately, but fortunately, I didn't want to go to the high school at that time.
Right.
As a kid from the Bronx, I had some trouble with the law in middle school, um, and just hanging around the wrong crowd and doing things I'm not proud of. I felt like Harlem wasn't the safest place for me to be, and I felt like there could be some issues if I went to high school in Harlem. However, that wasn't my choice, and I still had to go to high school in Harlem. And due to being in the school and other mentors like Dr. Hodge, rest in peace, they had this rule for me that, hey, you had to do an after school activity. We weren't going to let you go back to the Bronx and be in the streets. You were a good kid. I was a smart kid, just hanging around the wrong crowd and making poor
Right.
choices. And Dr. Hodge would chase me around the hallways. And he's like, you had to do an activity. And one day I'm scrambling through the halls and I'm trying to figure out, what I want to do and what activity I was interested in. And I remember seeing this teacher. And at the time, she was passionate, had a lot of students in the classroom who looked like me, who
Right.
were doing the right things. It was one of the few things in my life that you just don't get used to seeing. Being around somebody with kids with similar stories, parents addicted to drugs, long list of issues and problems, being in the shelter system, and watching these kids say, hey, we're going to MIT, we're going to
Mm-hmm.
Yale, we're going to Harvard. We have the same circumstances as you, Jonathan, but instead of hurting our community, we're going to find a way to be somebody and give back to our community. So that resonated with me. And it was one of the first times in my life where I seen people of color getting benefited and being popular and still being those cool kids around the high school, but they were doing the right things. So I started to sit in the back of the classroom. And then I found out very soon that this classroom was for speech and debate. And eventually it became a love of mine, and Deco ended up being a huge mentor and a huge resource throughout my life.
That's an incredible story. And it probably still isn't the cool thing to be a part of the speech and debate club, but you guys are looking at a incredible individual, and I'd love for them to know a little bit about what you also do. I guess you kind of have a dual career, if you will. I'd love for them to know the other part of that dual career as well, because I think it's important to see there's got to be representation, right? If we want something
Yeah.
different, and there's so many avenues that we can go into, it doesn't have to be a one size fit all. And I think you're the perfect example of that. So if you could share a little bit about, what you and your family have going on personally as well.
Imagine a world where recruiters come knocking at your virtual door, eager to hire you for your dream job. This can be you with 5-Minute Career Hacks exclusive LinkedIn hacking package. Over 90% of recruiters rely on this platform to make hiring decisions. And guess what else? 75% of people hired last year were discovered right here on LinkedIn. But we get it. You're busy, overwhelmed, and just struggling to find the time to optimize your profile. Let us do the work for you. For a limited time only, sign up today and we can help you break through your career on LinkedIn.
Yeah, so currently I'm a respiratory therapist who specializes in neonates and pediatrics at NYU Langone Medical Center. So that was my first career, my first passion. Um, I'm also an author now. I'm a podcaster, which is great. I love speaking. I love public speaking. I love being in front of the camera, educating the community, and having interesting conversations with amazing people all throughout the world. And I am the co-founder of the Brooklyn Debate League with Deco, and I teach debate. And throughout, it's multiple high schools throughout New York City. We give speech and debate to their schools. We give them resources, and we travel with our kids throughout the debate circuit, and they debate at Harvard, Yale, and some of the top institutions around the country. So those are, I think, my trifecta of what I do 7 days a week.
Incredible story, incredible choice of professions. I love when you said that you travel with your debate teams from different high schools. I think that is probably something that most people don't know in the places that you all have been to, some of the most prestigious institutions in our country, if not in the world. So there's opportunities for that. If you're trying to leave your area and see things and explore different opportunities, that's a way to go about it. I coach basketball, right? High school basketball. So we have AAU travel teams. It's kind of built into what we do in sports. However, there's other ways to see the world. And I know it
Yeah,
was a huge benefit for me in high school when I played and I got to see other parts of the US and now the country and the world. It's another way to get incredible exposure. So I love that you all are doing that. And I want to just know a little bit about that nonprofit that you all started
yeah,
and how did it get started?
yeah. So in 2017, Deco was, I think, judging at the one of the championships in California, and there was a freshman there who already had nationals, which was usually unheard of. To make it to the speech and debate national championships, it's like, whoa. Usually it takes you a couple of years, probably within your junior senior year, to make it there. So to have freshmen there was mind blowing to him. And one thing he realized was that these kids were being prepared to do speech and debate
Hmm.
from young, from fifth grade, from sixth grade to seventh grade. And the idea was, how do kids who are going to some of the lowest publicly funded schools, who are having parents with drug addiction, who have parents in jail, who are way below the poverty line, how are they going to compete with kids who are going to 40 to 30 thousand dollars summer camps,
Right.
who are going to be our next lawyers, who are going to be our next judges, who are in a sport where it costs almost $40,000 for kids to just speak about topics that affect our everyday life? So when Deco did that, he thought about me, he thought about the impact that speech and debate had on my life, and he said he wanted to start his own league. And for a lot of years, it was just really Deco pouring in his funds, and I was the number one donator. So I probably donated the most money to the BDL at that time, and it wasn't sustainable.
Right.
As we know, COVID hit. I was working, I didn't have multiple careers at that time. It was literally just me doing real estate and trying to help our nation being on the front lines in New York City. And it got to the point where my family was expanding, and I didn't know if I can provide for my three kids and numerous other kids for how
Right.
much longer, without my health and my mental being out of whack. So Brandon Staten, who we have to give a lot of credit from, who was the founder of Humans in New York, um, we were friends and we worked on things together, and he was interested in doing a story about me. And instead of being selfish and saying, hey, this is my moment, I can probably
Right.
get something for myself, I told him I wanted to honor somebody special and a program
Mm.
that I care about, that we're trying to build. And when I told him about Deco and he met Deco, he got the feeling that everybody gets, that this is
Yeah.
an amazing human being who's trying to do the right thing, who's a teacher in a world where, unfortunately, right now, it's so sad to say, where teachers are not valued, where they're going
True.
above and beyond to help kids in so many tough circumstances, and they're not getting the recognition they deserve. So I felt like in my new world and the privilege I now had, I said, like, I wanted to give my moment and share it with him. And to our behold, 33,000 people donated money, and we ended up getting 1.2 million, which was the real, we say was the real start of our nonprofit. and it allowed us to tap into hundreds and hundreds of kids, and now give speech and debate all throughout New York City to every kid who needs it.
Man, that's incredible. Congratulations. And
Yeah.
I hope no one misses this in the audience, whoever's listening, whoever's watching right now. The power of lifting up someone else and just appreciating and having gratitude for someone that's impacted you in your life doesn't steal or dim your light. It can actually
Not at
not
all.
only elevate you, but elevate something that you guys had no idea was going to come from that spotlight and actually infuse $1.2 million dollars into others. So by you honoring someone and showing your gratitude, it turned into helping, I don't know, thousands, if not millions into the future by third and fourth connection. So that is incredible. And I don't want that point, the origin of what you wanted to do in that moment, I don't want that to get overshadowed by, the shine of the 1.2 million or even this incredible book that you've written, which we'll get into here shortly. I don't want anyone to miss that. All of this started with you, Jonathan, saying, I want to honor someone else with this spotlight. And look what's
Yeah.
happened since then. So tell us about what's going on right now.
So what's going on right now? I'm in the middle of a book tour. Extremely blessed, but tired. It's always good to be booked and busy. And I'm promoting my book. My debut memoir wasn't supposed to be here. The beautiful thing about the platform and sharing your story was that, one, the world thinks they know you now. Millions of people have liked the story. I walk on the
Right.
street and everybody's like, I know everything about you. But the truth of the matter was, in 12 paragraphs, you can't tell a story that's so deep, that is affected by so many other things, and being a black man in America and all the things I had to overcome. So I wanted to let the world know that my story is just much bigger than the 2 years that me and Deco did amazing things throughout my high school career.
Right.
And again, I wanted to shine the spotlight on so many other mentors that I love and admire, that got me to Deco and that helped me even after I left Deco when I went on to college. So I thought it was just fair to share my whole story, to put it all out there, to show that it takes a village to help kids like me in some of the circumstances that I was born into, that through giving back and through just being loving people, just for accepting people who they are, that you can live a great life that's worth living. And I also wanted to show that, that doing speech and debate is cool. um Throughout my life, made tons of choices. I've been put with stigmas of thug, this, that, and the third. But on Fridays, I went and did speech and debate, and I want to show kids that there's other avenues. And no disrespect, Jamila, than basketball,
Right.
than
No, none
football.
taken. None taken.
Um, I'm a huge sports fan.
Right.
I love football. I love basketball. I'm a huge Knicks fan. I know that may sound crazy. I'm a huge Giants fan. Um, but at the same time, I understand that we need more lawyers in this world, and
Hmm.
more lawyers of color. We need more judges. We need more critical thinkers. We need more kids in this tough world where it's so hard to be a kid, where
Right.
bullying and violence, and who knows how to step up, who knows how to stand for themselves, who knows how to articulate themselves. I don't care who you is, you got to create, you have to know how to communicate,
Right.
um, in all different ways. Sometimes you communicate with body language. Sometimes you communicate with your face expressions.
Right.
And speech and debate teaches you that. I think is one of the most important activities we can offer to the world. And it's so sad why you have fees for kids to go and talk about the Supreme Court justice, criminal reform. Why is that more expensive than an entire football program in a high school? Why
Mm.
is that more expensive than a whole entire basketball team in a high school? I can tell you why. It's because there's gatekeepers, and we know that at these prestigious institutions, the admissions boards, these schools are watching these high school kids debate at an early age, and they're looking at their next lawyers. They're looking at their next critical thinkers. And I believe there's a reason why they're charging crazy amount of fees for kids who look like me to go up and have a voice. So that's what we want to do. We want to bridge that gap. There's not a person, there's not an adult, there's not a kid who cannot benefit from learning how to speak truth to power, from learning how to articulate yourself, from learning how to be comfortable in your skin. So what we're trying to do is tough, but we're trying to break some barriers. And I think every kid, I think it should be a requirement throughout all schools throughout the world. Every kid should have some type of speech and debate course where they know how to talk and say what's on their mind. And it doesn't mean you have to be a lawyer. If you wanted to
Right.
be a doctor, how do you communicate with patients when they're going through
Right.
some of the toughest things imaginable? If you are a coach, how do you get the best out of your players? How do you get that Deion Sanders effect? right?
Right.
If you are an engineer, how do you communicate with individuals about a project, about why this matters, or why what's going on within this group and teamwork? How do you get the best out of people who are working with you? So there's not a field where knowing how to communicate and knowing how to be your authentic self doesn't work. So it's just a beautiful thing to see, how
Yeah.
kids, come in and they're shy and they're going through a lot and they don't know how to express it. Then to watch them on a national stage in front of kids with numerous wealth and win these tournaments and feel like they belong in spaces that the world tell them they don't.
That's incredible. And you're educating me about the cost of admission. I had no idea the absorbent amount of money that's being collected for someone to go speak. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't require too much other than maybe some electricity lights and that's about it. In a podium probably,
A
right?
classroom, not yet. Sometimes it's a classroom with three people.
Yeah.
It shouldn't cost a kid $10,000 to go talk on a Saturday to spend their extra time talking about the
Crazy.
world that they're going to live in. It shouldn't cost that, but that's the problem we're stuck with. And the BDL is trying to bridge the gap to change that. And another reason that's important, a lot of times the world gets stuck on that $1.2 million. I'm just going to
Yeah.
be honest and vulnerable. When you're working with hundreds and hundreds of kids who sometimes doesn't have meals at home, who you have to feed, who you have to get
Mhm.
resources to, who don't have dress shoes, that money runs out fast when you're doing it the right
Quickly.
way. So I know it sounds like a lot to the world, and let me humble myself. It is a lot. It is a
Right.
lot. It's a great
And it's
start,
a
and for
blessing.
what
Yes.
it's a blessing, and we have been able to touch hundreds of kids because of it. But if we want to last for the next 20 years, we still need a lot of support.
Mhm.
We still need your support. Our students need your support. And every day we're fighting to create relationships to prove our impact. And hopefully that we could continue to do this for as long as possible. So
Right. That's incredible.
www.brooklyndebateleague.org.
Let them know,
we are,
Jonathan.
we still all need your help.
Yes,
Seriously.
truly, and it's going to an incredible cause, and you mentioned the different professions where it's needed, and I 200% agree with you on that. So let's transition a little bit and talk a little bit about how you poured yourself into this book and why you poured yourself into this book.
It was hard. I'm just gonna be blatantly honest. You grow up in a black household. You don't tell what goes on outside the house. You keep that secret. You deal with the trauma and you accept it. And as I got older and as I got to go into different spaces, I started to realize that a lot of things I went through wasn't normal and that I shouldn't normalize this. And for me to be a better father, for me to be a better coach, for me to be a better friend, I had to create safe spaces for a lot of people. And the only way to really create a safe space was to start off with me being vulnerable, was to start off with me just being honest about some of the things that I went through, about how I'm still damaged in certain ways. And I seen it as I walked into classrooms, as I shared my story since I've been on college, how my story has resonated with people, how it has motivated people. Kids my age looking up to me, of all races, looking up to me and saying, "You're a hero." And we're the same age. It spoke value to me. So I felt like I needed to go above and beyond what 12 paragraphs can do. I felt
Mhm.
like I needed to be vulnerable and show my kids that it's okay, even as a whatever stereotypes you put on me as a black man, it's okay to cry. It's okay to be emotional. It's okay to live in our truth. And I needed to let go of the chains that was holding me down. So I wrote a book that was raw, that was real, that talked about my flaws. I had an opportunity in 300 over 300 pages to I could have made myself look like Batman or Superman,
Yeah.
but I chose to be brutally honest. I chose to show what a community and how us being vulnerable and leaning on each other, what it can do to an individual's life. Even though, yes, I talk about drug addiction and some horrible things that me and my family went through, I also showed that drug addiction is complicated.
Yes.
That despite my mother's shortcomings, that she never missed a parent teacher conference. That she's more than what Hollywood or people try to portray black addicts. I have five siblings. We all went to college. uh my father went to work every day. Yes, he made tons of mistakes. Yes, they did things that it's tough to reimagine, but there was still beauty in their flaws. So I had to learn to take the good with the bad, and I
Right.
just wanted to write a book that was raw, that was honest, that was trying to teach people that even when you're going through something, you have to speak up, you have to
Mm.
ask for help. Um, you have to be stronger than generational trauma.
Yes.
You have to keep going. You have to believe. You have to dream when it seems impossible to dream. And I'm very thankful for the opportunity. And one of the questions that everybody always asks me is like, "What did you learn from the book?" I
Mhm.
learned that I'm still not healed. I learned that I have a lot of
Mm,
work. And I'm fine with saying that.
right.
Sometimes I get on these stages and I'm on a book tour and everybody comes to me and it's like, how did you survive these things? How did you overcome these things? How did you go from that to being the top at a university? How did you go from that to doing research and traveling to Singapore? And I say, I did it because I always believed that there was something greater than what my eyes can see. There was something bigger than the Bronx out there. Um, and I didn't do it perfectly. I did it with a lot of flaws. I did it with a lot of mistakes. Sometimes when you get these new images on you and you're a celebrity or you're this and people try to put you in this box, you tend to think that you need to be perfect. You tend to think that to
Right.
sell a product, you have to be the perfect smile, the perfect
Yeah.
weight, the perfect this, and that's not real. We're humans. And I decided that I wanted to go through my healing journey and my flaws in real time with the world. And I don't know. I don't think every publicist that I work with think I'm being the smartest for that. But there has to be
Yeah.
something more out there than a dollar. And sometimes you just have to live in your true authentic self and sleep well at night. And the rest will take care of itself.
And I think it's an incredible approach. And I'm just this one person, but connection is, at the root of who we are as human beings. I always
Yeah.
say we weren't put on this earth to be alone. It's very
Yeah.
difficult to connect with a manufactured persona that
Exactly.
we all know had struggles. We all know had challenges. We all know there are no perfect parents. I love to hear that you spoke about that in your book, and how you've taken what was probably a very tough situation with your parents and you've given them grace. I think that's so important because there's no handbook for parenting, and until you obviously at this point for yourself become a parent, you fully understand like
Yeah.
there's no manuscript to make it happen. There's no detailed instructions, step one, step two. So giving them grace as a part of that story that you tell in the book and being your authentic self, I feel like people will connect and that will resonate with someone that might not be going through 100% of what you went through, but maybe
Yeah.
it's just a small 1%. And then that gives them hope. I think that sells because I think that's who we are as individuals. We want to connect with people. That's why we're in relationship, right? It's probably why you married your amazing wife. The
Yeah.
connection, right? The
Yeah.
connection. So I applaud you for standing boldly in that,
Thank you.
somewhat against the machine, if you will, and ignoring all of that and writing your story,
Yeah.
right?
And
Your story.
and I think there's not a person in the world as far as you know, race or beliefs that this book don't touch, that it doesn't speak
Hmm.
to. You know, my village members come from, some are trans, some are black, some are white, some are Hispanic. And I think a lot of times, and I'm gonna say this carefully because as a black boy, representation does matter. I
Hmm.
needed to learn from black men what it took to be a black man to survive in this society. But I also think it's very important that you create a diverse village. I think it's very important that you learn from different cultures and that you accept and love different cultures and different people. And I test me building a diverse village and learning from so many different people that allow me to sit here today and say, I'm okay with being vulnerable. I'm okay with
Hmm.
living in my true authentic self. So that's just something that I always want to remind people, and especially black boys, that, hey, don't put yourself in a box. Talk to people. Find people who just gonna love you for you. And it may be a bunch of black men. Hey, it may be a black strong woman, and it may not be. And we have to be susceptible to change and be open to being in tune with our feelings. It doesn't make you weak.
Right.
It doesn't make you soft. It doesn't make you less than. And we just have to be our true authentic self because the watered down version doesn't help nobody. Um,
No. Because it eventually surfaces to the top and then that's where all the issues
exactly.
come into play. So to your point, I think you're sharing an incredible message. I know you're mentioning, hey, I want these young black boys, but I know there's some men probably listening or watching right now that might feel alone, which is probably the
Yeah.
biggest thing I hear from my black wonderful kings is that sense of
Yeah.
loneliness, even though there's people all around, that internal sense of loneliness, whether that's in the workplace, right? In community, in relationship, wherever that may be. And you're not alone, and you don't have to be alone. And if you're feeling alone, it's all right to say that you feel that way as well. So I hope y'all caught that in Jonathan's message, which I'm so excited for more people to read your book, more people to hear your story. I know you're also going to be in New Orleans. So for my sect of individuals
Yes.
with the 5-minute career hack, Jonathan will be in New Orleans November 30th. That's a Thursday. Which bookstore are you going to be at, Jonathan?
Yeah, Baldwin and Company.
Baldwin and Company. So I'm going to do my best to be present as well because I want to meet Jonathan in person and get my autographed copy of his incredible book. But as we wrap up this episode, I always like to ask everyone that comes on the show if they could leave the audience with their final 5 words, right? What 5 words, that could be a mantra, affirmation, a quote, whatever resonates to you that you want to leave the audience with to remember you and your story, your journey by. What would those final 5 words be for you?
Always be your authentic self.
Beautiful. Always be your authentic self. There's so much peace in that. And
There's an audience for you. There's a group of people who love you. Everybody might not accept it.
right.
Everybody might not get on task. But if you continue to be you, if you continue to live in your purpose, they will tag along. And that I can promise you.
That's incredible. That's an incredible message. Thank you so much for being on
Yes.
our show and sharing your experience, sharing your journey, as well as this incredible book that you have out. And thank you for your incredible service in the medical world. I know the many people that you've helped there is getting overshadowed right now, but we appreciate you for that as well. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, and thank you so much, Jamila, for having me. I really appreciate you guys. I really do hope I'm not me without you guys and your support. So
Right.
I appreciate you more than you can ever know.
Absolutely. And we're definitely going to leave a way to connect with you as well as the link to be able to purchase Jonathan's book in the show notes in the description. So you can check that out right now. And if you haven't already subscribed, be sure to hit that subscribe or follow button so that you don't miss these incredible interviews from a diverse pool of individuals that we're excited to bring to you on our podcast. So as I always like to say and wrap up every episode, number one, thank you again, Jonathan, for being here.
Yes, of course.
And as I always say, I love you and I'll see you soon. We have so many hacks to share. So if you haven't already subscribed, you can do that now. And don't forget to leave a review. And if you take a snapshot of your review and send it to us on Instagram, we will send you a premium course that usually sells for $57. We're truly grateful for your reviews as they play a vital role in helping us spread our mission of sharing these invaluable career hacks with the world. Thank you.